and welcome to our knowledge transfer series where we try and give you knowledge of the financial services industry and help you get further down your path, whatever that is. Today, we're going to be talking about the retirement roadmap presentation. We created this presentation for AAA of Washington. It was designed to be as informational as possible and no sales pitches. You're going to get opinions from me, but it's not designed to, be have one of those dinner invites where you'd go to a dinner and get a high pressure sales pitch to buy like an annuity or something. All right, let's get through this. I think this will be a good presentation and a lot of good information. Now, one of the things I always mention about this presentation is designed to give you an overview of retirement planning. I think it takes about a year to do retirement planning well. And what this is trying to do is try to touch on different pain points or topics for you to explore further, right? We can't do an entire retirement planning presentation in an hour. We have to really focus it on, here's an overview, here's other things to consider, here's some quick hitters, and then you should take it from there and kind of figure out where your path needs to go beyond that. My name is John Erickson. I've been running the Retirement Roadmap program for AAA for over 7 years now. I've been in the financial services industry more than 17 years. I run a practice here in Bellevue, Washington. So a lot of my information is going to be Washington State focused. Most of this is going to be generic enough it'll work anywhere, but most of my information is going to be Washington State focused. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about Social Security and income planning together. We always start with Social Security, kind of try and give a basic A to Z on that, and then we flip over and talk about income planning because they're really correlated. Then we're going to talk about investment and asset diversification, how it changes for retirees, at least some of the theory around that. Then we're talking about long-term care strategies. What are you going to do later in life when the fun is, less fun? And then if you want to ask questions after this presentation, feel free to email me, call me. I answer questions all the time for people just to kind of give further knowledge and get people down their path. Now, I am an independent financial advisor, so I'm not a AAA employee. So I do these presentations for AAA. I always mention that. My practice is in Bellevue. And when we do this presentation, I'm going to give you rules of thumb and as direct information as I can. But recognize that, everyone's situation could be different. And so we have to treat today's information as general in nature because, your situation could be actually materially different from the person to, your right or left you see from time to time.
So one of the problems with retirement planning is one of the best parts. Retirement's awesome for most people. Once you get it figured out, it could be really great. It's, there's always, of course, the outlying situation, but most people I'm working with, I would say retirement's pretty awesome for them. But there's an end to retirement. People age, and I have to deal with this with my clients all the time. And so, we have to talk about this concept of how are you going to handle things when you break down? And I would say, all financial professionals have some level of conflict of interest based upon their personal experiences. And I can tell you today what a nursing home smells like. Because when I was growing up, all four of my grandparents were in nursing homes. And when my father-in-law went to a nursing home recently, it was luckily a situation where we got better. It smelled the exact same. I could remember that smell from all the times I was going there as a kid. And so I'm predisposed to worrying about nursing homes and long-term care. And I think that's a big challenge when we talk about long-term care planning because, overall, your personal experiences really push you onto directions you may want to take here. So when we talk about long-term care planning, we need to talk about government programs. We need to talk about some of the concepts of self-insuring. And we need to talk about some basic ideas of purchasing insurance, some ideas of what you should consider. And if you ever attend a presentation on long-term care, you're going to find this statistic right here because this comes from a government website. And it basically says you have a very high chance of needing something. I don't know what you're going to need. That's actually the problem. If you ever look at distribution of services for long-term care, it's all over the board of what people need. Some people need just a little bit of help getting meals and they die. Some people need long-term memory care. Some people go into long-term care, then they run out of money and have to go home back to their family. It's all over the board. It's a brutal societal problem, actually. But I think it's fair to say the odds are incredibly high you're going to need something. And it's a little gender unequal because long-term care typically follows life expectancy, and women have longer life expectancy, so they're more likely to break down at an older age, basically. And when we talk about long-term care, we use the old school definition, which is the activities of daily living, because I like this one pretty well. There's this thing on there, it's called non-skilled caregiving, right? So skilled caregiving, skilled nursing facilities, right? I broke an ankle in retirement. I'd go to the hospital for multiple days. I get fixed up, and I get discharged to a skilled nursing facility for rehabilitation. And while you're there, you can look to the left and right of you, and you can see people at the exact same place you are who are not expected to get better, and they are getting non-skilled services. And that means that healthcare insurance typically doesn't have to pay for them. Medicare is not having to pay for them. And every once in a while, I have people try and tell me that Medicare pays for long-term care, and I'm like, well, on this website, it doesn't. So what are we missing here? So, if Medicare on this website saying it doesn't, and I have family experiences pointing this out, I'm going to point out that, if you have something happen in your retirement where you're not expected to get better, dementia, degenerative diseases around your hips or something of that nature, you might get kicked out of the healthcare category into the you need to pay for this stuff out of pocket. And it's hard it's Genworth's cost of care guide. You can go out there and look this up. It lets you put in your zip code and it'll generally tell you what costs of services are in your area. Having had clients go through this, the cost for services it can be really all over the map. And in fact, I typically find prices more expensive than this, especially on the nursing home side. But I think there's a good baseline of if you're going to do math and try and start planning this out when you're in your 60s, what you should start planning for. And I'm a financial planner. I'm trying to figure out, well, what's my process to handle this? And what I've figured out in my practice is called gap planning. Whenever someone asks me to review a long-term care insurance policy or review a long-term care plan, what I try and do is I try and figure out what the cost of a nursing home is in their area. I subtract their naturally occurring income. I assume their naturally occurring income has an inflation hedge. So Social Security should increase with inflation. It may not always keep pace with nursing homes, but it should increase with inflation. Your income from investments, if it's been done right, should have inflation on it. And so I will figure out a gap in today's dollars. And then that's what I have to figure out for insurance, for set aside money, the risk you're going to be taking, how long your money might run out, if I'm going to model that, everything we do around long-term care. And, when we talk, and I do this all fairly quickly. And when we have couples or other things that might mess this up, I might have to do add-in, like, well, your spouse is still going to live at home. They're going to still need to pay property insurance, things of that nature. Gap planning is actually more critical for couples because one can bankrupt the other. And then we have to talk about, okay, well, how are you going to self-insure? And most people self-insure those who own homes with their home because it can be really hard to set aside what it truly takes to cover baseline long-term care expenses out of your income plan. Because if we do a gap plan here and we look at the overall cost to do it, and we just use a couple example, you're talking $389,000 out of your income plan that just has to be set to grow because you can't take income from it and cover medical inflation. And, that's over $1,000 a month net of taxes most of the time out of your income plan. That's a big hit, like $1,000 a month. And so gap planning's there. I find people who naturally have more assets just naturally do this. People who have $2 million, $3 million. I usually say about $3 million for a couple is where I'm like, okay, this is naturally going to be a gap plan for them. But this is gap planning. It is the idea that you're going to set aside some portion of money to cover your gap and you have this set to the side. And when I know someone has this set to the side and they're okay on the rest of their plan, I think they're okay to a certain degree. They have a basic plan in place. You may want to look at government programs. We get to talk about Medicare versus Medicaid. Medicare on its website says it does not pay for non-skilled assistance and services, i.e. most long-term care expenses. If you follow under very specific guidelines, you can get 100 days for basically rehabilitation after something needs to get fixed. But in general, Medicare is your health insurance. It does not pay for long-term care. So if you didn't know that on this presentation, you know it now. Now, Medicaid. It probably pays for the majority of long-term care cases out there. But Medicaid is a poverty program. One of the things that always bothers me, it makes me really sad, is the number one cohort of people who live in poverty are retirees or the elderly. And medical expense is a big portion of it. And so Medicaid is a problem for couples. Medicaid is out there for a lot of people. It's going to help a lot of people, especially the group who are going to break down naturally in their life, may have gotten unlucky, but it's really hard to plan around, right? It's something I know is there, but Medicaid planning is a very specific discipline. You have to use a lawyer to deal with this. And so I don't typically engage too much in this in my practice. I just know it's there. I might use this for family members someday who have less assets and when I help them, but it's a problem. And so when you think about government programs, you don't really have anything right now. Washington State, because I'm based in it right now, and I don't have a slide on this here, but Washington State does have a small amount for long-term care right now. It's not a major benefit. It's kind of like a nice to have, like a drink of water when you're, dehydrated. It's not going to give you enough water, but it's going to help you out. But overall, there's not a lot of government assistance for long-term care unless you're in poverty. And then this brings us to the concept of long-term care insurance. And a lot of people look at this, and this is similar to my annuity presentation. I'm trying to go the good, the bad, the ugly, because long-term care insurance is once again, it's a loaded topic. It's about, so remember if you were to do a set-aside money, and I justified you mathematically, it's about $1,000 a month. Well, these are prices you might pay for a couple. This is not a guaranteed price. It's not an offer insurance. This is a price you might pay for long-term care insurance if you were to apply for this, for policies of these benefit types. And if you compare this to setting aside $1,000 a month, what you're doing now is you're now focusing this towards long-term care insurance. In this thing's case, you're spending all this money, and if you die in your sleep, you're not going to get it. But if you go to long-term care insurance, you're actually going to get typically more money than if you self-insured, and you're going to get some secondary features that might even give you additional money. And so what you're trying to do when you do long-term care insurance, if you're trying to do it right, you're trying to make it cheaper than self-insuring. But you're now tailoring this towards an insurance policy. Now, insurance policies have all sorts of rules you have to look at. You have all sorts of features you have to consider. And it's a bill you have to pay, right? Some people don't want to pay a bill in retirement. They'd rather just have the pool of money, which I get that. But this is a way to handle long-term care. It's long-term care insurance. And the math here looks pretty good, but I always tell people there's some challenges when you buy long-term care insurance. You can have price increases in the future if it's traditional. You have the use or lose it feature, meaning if you die in your sleep, you may not get anything. And you have to use more formalized long-term care facilities, right? You can't just hire someone off the street and pay them typically, because typically you need to have a reimbursement situation where you're getting a bill from somewhere that the long-term care insurance can pay on your behalf. But on the other side, if you look at like real long-term care insurance, if you actually use the benefits to their maximum capabilities, you typically are getting leverage over self-insuring. So there is some trade-offs here that isn't bad. But you kind of have to figure out where you're going to fit in this concept, basically. Now, if you look, you're in Washington State, you listen to the radio, or you look online, you're going to start to see more of this thing called hybrid insurance. And it's trying to fix some of the basic problems with long-term care insurance. It's trying to have a death benefit. So if you die, you get money back. It's trying to give you the ability to actually take all the money back, and you're not going to make very much interest, but here's your money back. And then you're also going to get the long-term care leverage. And so it's trying to do everything the previous policy was trying to do. But these are, once again, sample quotes. You can't just buy this. This is not an offer. This is designed for you to take away a chunk of money, set it aside, and leverage it for long-term care. But once again, it's focused towards long-term care. If you die and you get the money back, you didn't get much economic benefit. If you just take the cash back, you didn't get much economic benefit. The economic benefit is using it for long-term care. And it works. Long-term care insurance does work. There are some negatives to it. But if you look at the math actually is not too terrible if you can write the check. I always tell people when they're looking at long-term care insurance, and I'm one of those people who's predisposed to worrying about long-term care, you kind of have like three components you really need to look at. Can you afford the check? Which is why I'm trying to give you some estimates so you can kind of get a sense of this. So can you write that check? Do you believe in insurance? Some people don't like insurance as a concept. They hate insurance companies, which is fine. Insurance is supposed to be socially good, but it's not always socially good. Sometimes it's not good for people. So do you believe in insurance as a concept? And then that's another one. And then are you willing to do it at the end of the day? Are you willing to set aside the money? If you're going to go down the long-term care insurance route, though, I do want to point out the gotchas you got to avoid, or you should consider avoiding, because I've been in the financial service industry a while, and I dive into these policies. I'm like, well, how's this going to work? If this occurs, if someone walks into my office in 20 years, I'm in my 40s, it's very possible. Am I going to be in trouble if I do this? And so these are the ones I'm like, oh, I've seen people trying to market this, and I don't like this. So lack of cost of living adjustment, right? So when you buy long-term care insurance, day one when you buy it, you want it to grow as you get older. And a lot of people don't buy this as a feature. And because it's way cheaper. It's a lot cheaper to buy long-term care insurance without this. And it makes you feel good at night. But in 20 years, if someone walks in my office and they don't have a cost of living adjustment, we have trouble. Another thing long-term care insurance policies like to do is they like to promise really big benefit pools. And I didn't go over the quotes very much with you. I just kind of said, here's some things to consider. But they like to have large benefit pools. And then they give it to you very slowly. So they hope that you die before you access it all. Right, so you got to watch out for that. Are you actually getting the money out in a material manner, right? Thousands of dollars a month, like tens of thousands of dollars a month, not $1,000 a month, right? You see the difference there? That matters. You should always compare to shop long-term care. It does matter. You should at least get two quotes. Do you even need long-term care insurance? Some people don't actually need it that might want it, right? If you're single and you have millions of dollars of assets, and you don't have heirs you care about, do you need long-term care insurance? There might be some benefits, but it's not as critical in your case. And do you believe in insurance as a concept? Now, as I said, I didn't go over the quotes as hard because there's a lot of terms in there, and I'm trying to straddle that line of not offering long-term care insurance to someone while giving you good information. So I want you to see the prices and go, here's some theory of what should work, and then let you further dig into, does this work and does this fit your situation? But overall, we talk about long-term care. Have a plan. Does inheritance matter? Do you need long-term care insurance? Do you need a long-term care plan? Does this matter? Do you want control? If it's your destiny to face this, you're not controlling it at that point, right? The only control you can have is what you put in ahead of time. Do you have family or trust services set up for you, right? if you I have my little boy right now is only 3.5. I don't like to think of him, changing my diaper someday, right? But someday he's going to need to be involved in this plan to save him money someday. But I could set up trust services to do this for him at a cost, right? So, and if you're single, you don't have, a little boy or someone who, or family who's not your age, right? So your 65-year-old brother is maybe not the best option for your long-term care, right? Because they might be 80 when you're 80. You might need trust services, so you should explore that. But the idea is to have a plan at the end of all of this. Well, I hope this segment was a helpful presentation for you. We have all 3 segments, so you'll notice that there's a video for each of these. So if you watch, say, the long-term care video and you're like, what was they talking about, income planning? You should probably go watch the income planning video first. Same with the investment asset diversification. But I hope that, as you went through the videos, you got something of value. The goal here is to spread information and spread as much of value as possible. If you ever have questions, I'm based in Bellevue, Washington. I'm always happy to work with people who would like to have a personal financial planner. It's not for everyone, but you're welcome to check out my website, look at my fee schedules, contact me with basic questions. I love talking to people, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have down the road. Thank you for watching the presentation today.